Cardboard Studios presents
Heavy Cardboard, Episode 23, Ground Floor. Coming to you from the thunderstorm capital of the U.S., west of Florida, Denver, Colorado. Welcome to Heavy Cardboard, where we talk heavy and medium strategy board games, war games, 18xx, and other related topics on the board gaming hobby. I'm your host, Edward.
I'm the other host, Tony.
So, first off, we figured we'd start off by letting you guys know how to get in touch with us.
Sure.
First off, on the web, our website, heavycardboard.com, Twitter, @heavycardboard, Facebook, heavycardboard, email, wait for it, heavycardboard@gmail.com, and YouTube. Obviously, for those watching on YouTube, you found us. But for those listening, head to the website. We'll have the YouTube stuff hammered out by the time this uploads.
Not quite ready yet.
Yeah. So last but not least, if you guys would continue to take a few minutes and review us on iTunes, it's very much appreciated. And a lot of people actually have taken the time since our last episode.
Give a shout out to some of those names.
Yeah, so here are the reviews that have been left on iTunes. So a big thank you goes out to Mayneric, Solo Slayer 87, Lunar Knight, JJ Kuhn, Jason B 1002, and PAH 937. Much appreciated, guys. Please continue leaving the reviews and ratings on iTunes. It not only helps the show and gets more eyes and ears on us, but we appreciate just reading them. I mean, it brightens my day. If I'm having a crappy day at work and I see a new review, my day's a little less crappy at work now.
Indeed.
Yeah, so good stuff.
Let's also remind everybody about our great sponsors, Game Surplus. Great people, great games at great prices. Check them out on the web, www.gamesurplus.com.
Yeah, just quality people and somebody we're proud to be associated with.
Let them know that Heavy Cardboard sent you, too.
On that note, they have been gracious enough to give us a game for a giveaway. So we are going to be giving away a copy of Vladimir Suchi's Shipyard, which we've reviewed in a previous podcast, and we both thoroughly enjoy.
It's a terrific game.
Yeah, spread the love type thing, right?
Yeah.
So, thanks to Game Surplus for allowing us to do that. And all you have to do to enter is email us at contest@heavycardboard.com. Notice the change in the email address for
the contest.
And two things. First off, tell us how you first heard about the show. Mm-hmm. And secondly, tell us what game you're most excited to play for the first time in 2015, whether it's a 2015 release or something new to you in 2015.
Just new to you in 2015. And we'll just do our normal pull a rabbit out of the hat and pick something at random, and that'll be the winner and the recipient of Shipyard from Game Surplus and Heavy Cardboard.
Yeah. And as far as shipping goes, in the U.S., it's free. It's on us. We'll cover that. If it's outside the U.S., you are more than welcome to enter. We'll cover the first $15 for shipping, and you guys meet us the rest of the way.
Cool.
All right. So it feels like it's been a while since we've recorded last, because April was one of those weird months in that it had the extra week, right, the fifth week, and we normally release the first and third Thursday of every month. But you did an amazing job of editing the last episode so fast that we actually released it a couple days early. We released it on Tuesday instead of Thursday. So it feels like it's been a month since we last recorded. It's been crazy.
True. That does have its benefits. It only happens twice a year, but they do have their benefits, as will be apparent to our listeners.
Yeah,
as we go in here.
Plus, I mean, as much as I love recording the podcast and everything, it's a lot of work. So it was kind of a nice break to get away from the deadline.
Yeah,
you know, the I guess self-imposed deadlines for being able to play games a certain amount of times and all that. But it's nice.
As we'll discuss, we certainly took advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Normally we record on Mondays, as we are tonight, but we're trying something different. We got the video camera going.
You can see us.
Right, and for better or for worse.
Probably
and
worse.
so this is going to be posted on our YouTube page, obviously, as we mentioned. So give us feedback. If you guys are digging it, let us know. If you want us to never do this again, let us know that, just nicely, please.
We are people, too.
You're right. We have a feeling. So, Saturday was the big fight. I know you're not a big fight fan.
That's a disgusting sport.
If you say so. So, Amanda and I used to live in Las Vegas, and we're both big fight fans. We went to a bunch of the, high-end
I like you in
championship
spite
fights.
of that.
So Saturday was the big Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather fight, and it was a huge letdown because it went like almost every other Mayweather fight. It's just, he is a master of defense. The dude just doesn't get hit. And it makes for very boring fights, but give credit to him because he's the best of our generation. I don't like him. I was rooting for Manny, but had I laid money on the fight, it would have been on Mayweather.
So I'm going to break out a reference that may surprise you, but is that like a 1-0 baseball game, which is kind of...
Well, see,
because the defense is so awesome or the pitching is so...
I guess, kind of, but at the same time, see, I appreciate a baseball game like that. I as a former pitcher, I appreciate the finer things, a pitcher's duel in that.
Well, how about the sport that fighting's okay in? Hockey.
Oh, absolutely.
A 1-0 hockey game.
In the end, I'm just glad we didn't have to pay for it. We went over to one of Amanda's friends' house to watch the game. Had a bunch of people. It was a good time. So even though the fight was kind of it was cool to go over there and hang out.
Right on.
So it's spring here in Denver. And the reason we know this is there's no snow anywhere, number one. And number two, a lot like Florida, we get thunderstorms almost daily.
Spring has sprung a leak.
Seriously.
Every year it does that here.
Yeah, and it's nuts. Asher, our poor greyhound, hates this time of year.
Yeah, our dogs too.
Yeah, not a fan of thunder.
No, the other night, man, like at 1 a.m.
Right.
Buddha, the dog, in the bed.
Hold me.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, a couple other things. Getting really, really excited for HeavyCon. That's a few weeks away.
Yeah, man. Memorial Day weekend.
Yep. Along with that excitement, I'm also extremely nervous because it's the first time we've ever hosted that. We have a bunch of people coming out from out of town. We got about 16, 17 people total, and going to be a lot of fun. We'll be tweeting out pictures left and right, and maybe even recording a pod blast during it, and we'll see. We'll play around with that idea.
Will Splendor get played there?
No. I mean, so I started a geek list on Board Game Geek for those attending to chime in and try and organize, hey, what games do we want to play? And man, the list is heavy and long.
It's
and
awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I don't know what I want to do. I have some ideas, and I'm going to talk about one of them because somebody asked a question about that. But
right.
Wow.
Yeah. The con's going to be 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And what I've realized is it should have been about 17 days for all the games that are getting mentioned and want to get played. Yeah.
One day.
We'll get there. Well, once we win the lottery and no longer have to work.
A gathering of heavy friends, although that sounds...
Girthy friend? Yeah, moving on.
Yeah.
So, this summer, I have a goal for the show.
Okay.
And tell me what you think of this.
Right, fire.
I say that either in June or July, we do our first completely 18XX-centric show. And what I mean by that is we discuss what 18XXs are.
Okay.
Why
to our abilities, anyway.
Yeah, sure. Why we dig them, why we think they're awesome, why we enjoy them.
Right.
And we review, one main featured review like we normally do, say 1846, maybe 1830, something along those lines.
1879.
Right. Well, and kind of, discuss the ones that we've played and everything.
Yeah.
And, so that'd be a good goal. So I'm putting you on the spot on tape and on film.
All right.
As it were. Video, film. You get the idea.
Yeah. Digital.
What do you think?
I love the idea. As you well know, I am a recent person to be infected with the 18XX bug.
Which hopefully is contagious and spreads, right?
And so I'm totally in with that. And, we've played 1846, we played 1879. There's some others. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool.
Is June too soon? Maybe it's July, because it's already May.
Right. Let's shoot for that. Cool.
And you and I are talking about forming a heavy cardboard game group here in the Denver area, and my proposition to you was the first Saturday of every month is 18XX Day.
Sign me up. Done. Yes.
So,
maybe
absolutely.
it's not
the first Saturday, but you get what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
Regular 18XX play.
Yes.
Because I'm hooked. I'm smitten.
Deal.
All right.
So, what have you acquired recently?
Well, 1830.
The Mayfair edition, right?
There's a copy of it right there.
Sure.
Proof of my infection. And a game that you're going to talk about, and we've both been recently introduced to, Arboretum.
Yeah. Rock on.
That's all I've acquired, though.
That's it.
That was it.
So it's been almost a month since our last podcast.
I've been too busy playing games to buy games.
Good problem to have, I guess.
With little exception.
All right. Yeah. So for me, the first one was a happy accident. So I'm pretty active in Board Game Geek auctions. I'll it's kind of a second-hand store auction thing, right?
Well, you're a collector.
Partial collector, I think is fair. As you guys can see, because I think the camera stops here, but there's doubled up there. Right. But anyway,
it's 50% of the picture there.
Yeah, right. Plus
minimum,
plus all that. Yeah. But anyway, so a gentleman had Strasbourg, which is a older Stefan Feld game that I played for the first time over at your house. Right. You have a copy, and it's got a really, really cool auction mechanic that
we love auctions.
That I don't know that anything else out there does what this does.
Yeah, it's pretty unique.
Yeah, I thought so, and I think we enjoyed it enough to where I'd like a copy. Sure. So he had it up there. I threw out a bid for $35, which is below the reserve, just in case.
Right.
No one else bid, and I got it, and he accepted the bid. So rock on. So Strasbourg has since made its way here.
I think Strasbourg's probably in the top half of Feld's catalog, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that's a definite there. So I also acquired a copy of Arboretum, which I'll talk about here more in a little bit.
We got our copies together.
Yes. Right after playing it at the Conclave for the first time.
That's right.
As soon as I played it, I had heard it on the Punching Cardboard podcast the day before. And the guys were just raving about it. So I was like, cool, I'll check into it. Just so happened that our buddy Jim happened to bring it the next day. And I was like, oh, sweet, I just heard about this game. Let's try it. As soon as I got done, found us a couple copies and done, sold, bought.
I didn't even get a chance to play with you in that game. And you're like, this is awesome. I'm going to buy one right now. And I just said, just based on what you said,
it's $15. Get two. Yeah, exactly. So the other thing that I wanted to we have recently acquired was yesterday on Sunday. I guess Saturday, got a package in the mail from our buddy Kevin out in Kansas City, who we met through Paul Chad, also good friend of ours, friend of the show, obviously.
Indeed.
So apparently there's been some stuff going on in the background that I have not known about because they got my wife involved regarding this. And so she knew it was coming. She didn't know all the details of what this care package was.
Okay.
So included in this care package, first off, inside the box was Kevin had made me a custom box for 18AL.
Right.
Gorgeous. I had seen one that he had made, literally from scratch. The whole box is made from scratch. He had made it for Paul Chad's copy, and my copy is a print and play production or a homemade that I'd gotten secondhand. And it'd been stored in a Combat Commander Resistance game, and it's looked weird. Yeah. And so, in fact...
it's in the box.
Yeah, actually, had it. And so Kevin made this for me because I was giving him grief. I was like, hey, how come I don't have
right?
And so I was half kidding when I said it, but he was willing to make it. So,
Yep.
so this is what everything came in. So inside of there were a copy of 1879 that he sent to us that was extra, and which was, I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because it's a winsome game, hard to get, expensive, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason I wanted it is it's kind of a riff off of 1830, is because it's the Pacific Northwest, which is where I'm from.
Right.
And so I thought, wow, I was blown away by that. So continuing with this, Paul Chad had brought up 2 copies of SNCF for us well, that he got.
Dude's awesome.
It just, I mean, it was a embarrassment of riches on Sunday. So Paul Chad brought those up, and so we had those. We had 1879, which we also played and enjoyed
with NCSF.
SNCF, right? Yeah.
Paris Connection,
right,
is the reprint of it
by Queen Games. Right.
If you're not familiar, we love the game.
Yeah, it's
heavy filler,
10-15 minute filler that is impressive. The amount of game that's in there, and so really good game. So the coup de grace though was a total surprise. So Kevin made a custom Age of Steam map for heavy cardboard. It's been pretty well tested by some Age of Steam experts. I mean, the level of play of those guys in Kansas City have is pretty impressive. And so they went and they made us this map, or they made the map for us
for heavy cardboard,
right, to commemorate our 1-year anniversary of the show, which is coming up, and just blown away by it. It's instead of the city names, it's games that we reviewed.
It's games that we reviewed. The little iconography on the city is the Denver skyline,
right? Just
and it's got our little logo in the center hex, and that plays an important role in the game.
It does. It's almost like a cube fountain that, instead of the normal production in Age of Steam. And we busted it out. Now, I had played Age of Steam twice before,
and I had never played it.
And I really did not enjoy Age of Steam. And so this was partially done as Kevin's way of trying to coerce me to play it again and see if I could get into it. And I'd be damned if it didn't work. And I can't say that playing on our own map didn't play a part. Mm-hmm. Also, the fact that I won, which never hurts. But I really enjoyed the game. I think the problem that I'd had in the past was the fact that the maps that I played on for the player count just didn't work right, and it was either just boring or blasé. It just didn't work right. This at 4 players was awesome. It was a blast.
It was intense. It was my first game of Age of Steam, so I had no preconceived notions. Although I've played Steam many times before, so I had a general gist of what to do. And that map was tight and intense with 4. And
I'm anxious to try it.
I would love to try it with 5. At the end of the game, I was like, I need to sell my copy of Steam and get Age of Steam. It's a fun game.
Yeah, it was good. So a really, really big, genuine, heartfelt thank you goes out to Kevin, to Paul Chad, and also to the guys of the in the Kansas City area that helped play test it. Apparently, Chatty Boy, Open Face Chad, and all the other guys. So thank you, genuinely, thank you very much. I just totally humbled, blown away. That was awesome.
Now, when this episode airs, or shortly thereafter, Kevin is going to upload the files for this map to BGG on the Age of Steam forum, so that if you guys want to print your own heavy cardboard map and give it a fly,
and why wouldn't you?
It's pretty damn cool.
It's a pretty good map. Yeah, rock on. So again, thanks guys, really appreciate it.
Right on.
So that's all I've acquired. Long way to go about it, but it was I think it was fitting. So
other than Princes of Renaissance or whatever the hell that Martin Wallace game is that you can never. What are you hunting?
Oh, so other than Princes of the Renaissance?
Yes.
Really, honestly, not much. I mean, I would like to try out Argent the Consortium, because we didn't get a chance to play that at the Conclave.
But see, I don't want to acquire it to try.
Sure,
it.
I want to try someone else's copy first, right? Other than that, I mean, sure, I'd love to find a copy of 18 Ardennes for a cheap price or whatever, but honestly, I'm still kind of in a not really looking for anything. If something, shows itself and it's a really good deal and it's something that, hey, I've been meaning to get that, great. Otherwise, not much. You?
I would like to acquire on the SNCF kick Northern Pacific.
That's a winsome game as well, right?
It's another little winsome micro. And I recently just reached out to a BGG user who shows one for trade. And he's like, no, I like it. I'm like, well, you have it for trade. He goes like, oh, that was an extra copy that I sold. Sorry.
Ouch.
I was like, bummers, man.
Yeah, okay. But when you say micro game, what exactly do you mean by that?
You can place a train or a cube. Right? It's micro in the sense that SNCF is micro. There's your choice during the turn is this or this, but the thought involved in that simple choice.
Gotcha. Short playtime as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, I know you and Paul Chad have talked about it, especially like while we're playing SNCF or whatever. I'm not familiar with it, so I'd like you to get a copy so that I could try it.
Yeah, and Northern Pacific also up your alley.
Right.
Well, let's see. As I alluded to earlier, we took advantage of the extra week since the recording. Felt like a month, as you said.
Right. In a good way, though.
Yeah.
Right.
We've been playing a crap ton of games, and I'm just going to throw out a whole bunch of games here.
Okay. That you've played
most of which we've played together. So so some of these I have not played with you in that period of time. So as I rip through this list, if there's something we played together, chime up. And then, what have you played that I haven't? All right.
Rock and roll?
Obviously, Arboretum.
Sure.
I know we played 1846.
Yep.
We played Carson City, and that was a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, and the reason that was a mistake is I've been wanting to try it, and you just recently got the expansion
Golden
for
Guns.
it. Right.
Thank you, Game Surplus.
Right, exactly. But it was the last game on Saturday night of the con. We were we played at 5-player. We were all mentally exhausted, and I think 3 or 4 of us hadn't played it before, and trying to learn a new game like that, even though it's not a real complex game, not a real heavy game, just bad idea.
No one was in the right frame of mind. Too.
So
it was an awful experience.
Yeah, we really didn't enjoy it, but because we know what where we were mentally.
When I got home, I put it on the auction shelf.
Did you?
It was that bad of an experience.
I want to
play it again. Maybe I should rethink that.
Yeah, I want to play it again, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the auction shelf, but I'm willing to try it when we're fresh. Right, okay.
SNCF, we're always playing that. Facts in 5. We played that at the Conclave of Gamers, too.
Right, so one night, it was Christmas Day. Paul Chad had come over to our house because he doesn't have family in town.
Right.
And so we were like, hey, you want to come over for dinner and we'll play some games and stuff. So he did. And one of the games that he brought was Facts in 5.
Dude, it's from like the 60s.
Yeah, 60s.
It's like an Avalon Hill bookshelf game.
That's exactly what it is, right. But it's an old school trivia game, but not in a normal sense. It's, hey, draw cards and pick one, and it's going to be name countries
it's like trivia categories.
Sure.
And they're getting drafted into the game.
Right. And you have to list them. The kicker is there's a timer. And I don't care how smart you are or how much you know. As soon as somebody hits that button on the timer, all knowledge just seeps out of your head instantly.
Name people whose name starts with T. Go. I mean, you're right, man. It's just blank.
But it was so much fun to play it then 3-player, and then we busted it out at he busted it out at the Conclave, and I want to say we played it like 10 or 12 players, and it was just hysterical. And because somebody be like, oh, I got Qatar, because it was like countries and one of the letters.
Countries that start with a Q.
Right, and nobody could figure one out, and then when somebody they're like, oh, obviously, yeah, I should have gotten that, whatever. But just, it was hysterical.
It was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Clearly, we've been playing a lot of Ground Floor.
I've heard of that.
I've played some 20th Century. I know that wasn't with you.
Right, but it's one of the challenge games from the Punching Cardboard guys.
Obviously, Age of Steam on our heavy cardboard map.
Right.
Marco Polo, played that twice. 2 different paths won the games.
Okay, well, that's encouraging, because I'll be honest, I've heard... Yeah. I know it's coming out because it's already out in Europe.
Right,
but there's an English version coming out later on this year.
It's language agnostic.
But I'll be honest, a lot of what I've heard, and it's all coming from the gathering of friends, wasn't positive about the game. Saying really unbalanced and this and that. But so far, good indications on your end?
Well, I mean, so 2 games.
Or 2 or
so, I'm not going to agree or disagree with anyone on the imbalance. I think, first of all, anytime that you have asymmetrical stuff like that, good luck balancing that.
Right.
Second of all, this is a light family game. I'm not playing it because it's balanced or unbalanced or, you know what I mean? It's not a serious game. If it was a serious game and unbalanced, I'd have an issue with it.
Okay, so it's shorter play time and all that, right?
It's like 20 minutes a player.
And it's pretty.
It's gorgeous.
All right.
Crokinole, we had a heavy cardboard Crokinole tournament at the Conclave of Gamers. It was impromptu.
Right.
We had some time to kill.
It was us 2 and our buddies, Banker Dave and Brian. We both advanced. And then you had, it was either 125 to 15 or 135 to 15 lead.
Yeah.
And you play to 150, and you didn't score again from that point. So that was, I did a little happy dance.
It was like that old, what was it, Houston Oilers, Buffalo Bills playoff game where it's like 38-0 at halftime and the Bills came back and won.
That's pretty much what it was. It was awesome. Huge bragging rights for another year.
You're Frank Reich. Through the Ages, first time I'd played that.
Right.
You taught?
And so what were your thoughts?
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's I
want to get a copy, but you're saying wait till the new edition.
Yeah,
and our buddy Paul Grogan is saying wait till the new edition.
Right, and I have a hard time labeling a specific game my favorite game because there's.
Well, I've heard you say that about a couple,
right?
So
and so
that's proof of what
they're
you're
up there,
saying.
right? But if you put a gun to my head and said, "Look, you have to choose one game," I might lean towards Through the Ages, even though I think I've only played it 4 or 5 times. I think that's probably my favorite game.
Right
so
on.
I'm really glad that you dug that.
We have one play so far of a prototype that we're working on in the heavy cardboard laboratories.
Right. So
that's enough said.
Okay. Moving on.
I played an abstract game called Six. Played it like 6 times in 6 minutes.
Okay.
And I never need to do that again.
Okay.
But I was making someone happy at the Conclave. Orleans.
Which I'm looking forward to the deluxe copy that I backed on Kickstarter to get here. I think it's going to be in the winter. But yeah, good game. Fun, good stuff.
I got some Agricola in at the Conclave.
Cool.
That was without you. That was with Banker Dave and our friend Matt from New Mexico. Caverna, Fields of Arla. A little bit of a Uwe Rosenberg run there for me. Container got an awesome 4-player round of that in at Conclave.
I'm hoping to get that played at the at HeavyCon.
Oh, it's gonna.
Okay, good.
Innovation.
That's Carl Chudik's. I don't know if it's his first game, but earlier than like Glory to Rome and stuff like that, right?
Multi-use cards,
right? Which is kind of his hallmark because he's done that with Impulse.
He's got those new ones, Motanai, or
it's got a weird game, weird name, but it's getting positive buzz that I've heard so far.
For the most part.
I haven't played Innovation. What do you think of that?
Stick with Glory to Rome,
really,
or some other, or Impulse and stuff like that. Yeah, it just wasn't. It had some really cool ideas, but overall, I didn't really enjoy it all that much.
Huh? Okay, all right.
Airlines Europe.
Okay.
Tashkent, 1879. That's the end of that list.
Oh.
What have I missed that you've gotten exposed to?
Let's see. So, played Metropolis or Metropolis. I'm not sure of the pronunciation on that. It's with the YS.
Yeah.
But Ugly as Sin board, but really cool bidding game.
I've only got to play that like a couple times. It's really awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. Played Bus. That was my first game at the Conclave with Paul, Chad, and Jim. It was Jim's first time playing it. He really enjoyed it. And I'm convinced that when I taught you the game, I completely butchered it because you hated it.
I did.
I mean, just pure object hate.
Purposefully, in my turns, brought the end of the game on.
Right, you were trying to
Just get this
rip
over with.
the space-time continuum.
over with.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're willing to give it another
I am
try
indeed.
because boo on me. Good. All right, rock on. Other than that, that heavy cardboard prototype that's inspired by Indonesia that we're not going to talk about, but hopefully get played.
Right.
At HeavyCon.
At HeavyCon.
We won't talk about that.
Never heard it?
All right. Heard what? Mm-hmm. Crickets.
All right, it's time for Heavy Cardboard's take on Arboretum. Edward.
Yeah, so Arboretum, a small little card game, came out this year. In fact, a month or two ago,
Right.
I think, 2015. Designed by Dan Kassar, published by Z-Man Games. It plays 2 to 4 players. I've played it 2 and 3 player myself. I think you've played it
2, 3,
all
4.
3. Okay. Takes anywhere from, I'd say, 10 on the low end, 10 to 15 minutes, up to maybe 30 minutes at most.
Yeah.
So what's going on in the game? Arboretum's a set collection and kind of tile placement card game.
Here, hand me that box, sir.
Oh.
I'm going to watch while you talk.
All right. So it's a set collection, kind of tile placement card game. The game consists of a deck of 80 cards. There are 10 different suits, each number 1 through 8, and each of the suits are a different color and different type of tree, or a different species of tree, as it were. The number of players dictates how many species of trees you're going to play with. So out of those, 10 decks, if you're playing 2-player, you're going to take 4 of those sets out to where you're only playing with 6 of the different species. Mm-hmm. Each player is dealt 7 cards to start, and players take turn drawing 2 cards from either the deck or any mix of the players' discards. Then they play 1 card and start building their own arboretum or your own tableau. And then you discard 1 card. Very simple mechanically.
Yes.
The placement of the card that you play, though, must be orthogonally adjacent to any other card in your tableau. And the game ends when the duck runs out, and then the players attempt to score each species of tree. Whoever has the highest score wins the game. So, like I said, it's a really simple game mechanically, but there's real genius in the building of your arboretum and the brutal choice of what to discard and the equally kind of painful scoring mechanic.
Yeah, you get to this point where you got 7 cards in your hand. Well, 8, really, because you've just played 1 into your arboretum, and now you have to discard down to 7, and you're like, I don't want to get rid of any of these because they either play in my arboretum or in someone else's, or it's lessening your score in a particular species. It's brutal.
Right, and so let me take a minute and explain how that works.
Please.
So, to score a species of tree at the end of the game, a player must have a minimum of 2 trees bookending in an orthogonally adjacent ascending set of cards. Mm-hmm. So it can snake through your arboretum, whatever, as long as on either end there's, say, an olive tree.
Right.
It doesn't matter. There can be a cassia tree, there can be maple trees, there can be olive trees in between, or it could all be olive trees. Right. That's fine. Whatever you want to do. You get bonus points if the run is at least 4 cards and are all the same tree.
Right.
So, say 4 olive trees or so.
Yeah, that's 2 points a card instead of 1.
Right.
It's pretty good to get.
Yeah, because there's not the scores are, in the teens, maybe.
Maybe.
You also get bonus points if you've played the 1 and or the 8 in your tableau for that run. If those are the bookend, or one of those are the bookends, you get 1 point for the 1, 2 points for the 8. But notice earlier I said that you may potentially score a species of tree. And the reason that is, in order to score that species of tree, you must have equal to or more than the number of pip value.
The face value of the card.
Right. In your hand at the end of the game. So, going back to that olive tree example, I have to have the highest or tied for the highest value of olive trees in my hand at the end of the game. So I have this great run, whatever, but you have the 7 olive tree in your hand, Tony, and I only have the 5, or maybe I have, say, the 2 and the 4 in my hand for a total of 6.
Sure.
7's higher than 5 or 6, whichever I have. Ergo, I can't score olive trees. You can. And if we had tied, then we both could score those.
Or everybody who has olives
would be able to score them. The one catch to that, or the one additional catch to that, I should say, is the 1 and the 8. So 8 is the highest card in a certain species.
8 is bigger than 1.
Right. However, if you have the 8 and I have the 1, then your 8 gets trumped by my 1. However, if you had the 2 and I had the 1, your 2 is higher than 1.
Right.
So you would be able to score it. So basically, it all boils down to the 1 trumps the 8, and that's it. Otherwise, the 1 is just the weakest card.
And that causes some interesting decisions in what you keep, what you play in your Arboretum, what you throw to the other players, too, because until a 1 or an 8 makes its appearance, you just don't know what the hell's going on.
Yep.
And you're at risk. During the game, you feel like a little bit of tension about your discards.
Oh, more than a little bit, I'd say. But yeah, so another thing is the artwork is gorgeous in this game. The trees, each individual tree has their own artwork, or I should say, each species of tree has its own artwork.
And they're gorgeous.
Really pretty. For $15, really good. Filler done right, I would say.
Absolutely. This is definitely one that everybody that likes a thinky filler should get.
I would concur. And normally I would go on and talk about the things that I didn't dig about the game. But I'll be honest, I can't really think of anything. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It works your brain over either as a warm-up or cool down, or in between games or whatever. Perfect for that. It's fairly priced. Gorgeous artwork. I got nothing. Do you have anything that's...
The only thing I've ever had a problem with, and it's probably me teaching sometimes to some people, but the 1 and 8, and I have to have more than up here down in my Arboretum. Some people haven't grokked the scoring until we actually do a scoring round. And they go, oh, I got screwed. I understand now.
Well, the good news, though, is with it being a 15, 20-minute game, okay, if you didn't get it the first time, let's shuffle up and deal.
And that's what we did.
And play another.
We played again.
Play another round, right. As far as a rating, we rate on a 1 to 6 scale, with 1 being Light It on Fire, 6 being a Hall of Fame game. For what this is, going up against other fillers,
sure,
I would rate this as a 5.
Oh, I concur.
It does what it's intended to do perfectly. Thinky filler, well done.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right. So that's Arboretum. All right, so Heavy Cardboard's turn to take on 20th Century.
20th Century is a 2010 release designed by Vladimir Suchy.
Or Vladimir Suchy for
right.
Us regular folk.
He's the famous designer of Shipyard, a 2009 release, a game we think very highly of. And 20th Century is a 3 to 5 player game. Takes about a couple of hours, a little less if you got fewer players. And what's going on in the game is it's a 6-turn game, and you're building a country over the course of those 6 turns. And to build a country, you're going to buy some land tiles at an auction. God knows we love auctions.
Yeah, boy, do we.
Yes. So there'll be a number of land tiles up for auction. When you acquire a land tile, you will also get a trash cube. And you will get additional trash cubes for each land tile you acquire at an auction. So if I acquire 2 land tiles, I would get 1 for the first one, 2 for the second one, 3 for the third one, etc. So more tiles you get, which is good, the more trash you get, which is bad.
Right.
You can also acquire technology tiles, and it's kind of the way to acquire technology tiles is really kind of like a Dutch auction where the price starts high and goes low.
Okay.
Because as land tiles are sold, the price of technology tiles will drop. So you as a player have a choice now of, do I want to bid on this land tile and possibly buy it, or do I want to drop out of the auction for land tiles and now acquire a technology tile at its current price? So the sooner I do that, I might be paying higher than people who drop out later.
But you have more of a choice. You get first
pick
dibs,
or
right,
second pick,
right,
of the tiles that are over there. So a little bit of a balancing mechanism there. Land tiles are bought with money. Technology tiles are bought with science points. And when you buy the land tiles, they have cities. And when a city is populated with citizens, it'll produce something. They'll either produce money, science points, victory points. Maybe it's a recycling center to take care of trash cubes. Some cities produce more than one thing. And as the game goes through the 6 turns, the land tiles get cooler and cooler and make more stuff.
So they build up, right,
Yeah.
right.
And same for the technology tiles,
A
too.
narrative arc, if you will.
Indeed, sir. So, like, phase 1 of each turn is the land tiles, and phase 2 is kind of the people getting their technology tiles as they drop out of the land auction. And then the third phase is another type of auction to avoid ecological catastrophe.
Right. Yeah. I remember this now.
And it's a cool auction. It's one where there's one track for each player, and you pay in technology points. So you better keep your technology points up. And it's numbered like, say, 1 through 20. So if I want to bid 11, I'll put my pawn on the 11 spot, right? Now somebody could outbid me at 12, and I have to move somewhere else, maybe outbid somebody else.
Right, because you can only have one pawn
Per column.
Yeah. And so it's some are worse than others, or better or less bad.
If there's 5 players, there's 5 columns in play.
Right.
Once we're all in our own column, we're going to pay the price in technology points that we've bid, but each of the columns is progressively more severe of a catastrophe.
There you go. That's what I was trying to say.
And the first column's always like no catastrophe. So everyone's just bidding like mad dogs on that one. And at some point, people are dropping out and they have to. So one tactic is, I'm a bid up here, knowing that you're going to outbid me and pay 15 technology points. All right, fine. I'll just come down here and take 2 trash cubes for 2 technology points.
Unless you then went into another column that had somebody already there, which then kicks them out, and they could conceivably go back to the one you just came from, or to any other one. And it kind of has that cascade effect.
When people have a lot of science points, that cascade effect, it's just brutal and going back and forth until people finally go, price is too high.
And tapping out, just go where they're... I'll take the worst catastrophe and pay little to no technology.
Right. That's right.
Very, very cool mechanic.
Indeed it is. I like everything about the game. And... it could be maybe a little fiddly for some as you're moving citizens around, because some of the technology tiles are trains that let you move your people around, and the trash cubes all over the place and stuff like that. I don't mind it. It's not that fiddly to me, but to some perhaps it is. But that's really about the only thing I can think negative about the game. I mean, it's got 3 friggin' auctions in there, right? One for money, the Dutch auction for technology kind of thing, where you when do I drop out, and then the catastrophe auction. So it's just, it's right up my alley.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So when I knew this was going to be your trailer for today, I got to reading other people's takes on it and stuff, and somebody had mentioned that it's almost like Carcassonne meets Power Grid. What do you think? Now, you've played this more than I have. I've only played it the one time so far. Really enjoyed my play of it. But I thought, okay, because the Carcassonne tiles, right? You get
I can
kind
see
of
that part.
And then the auctions, kind of a map type thing with Power Grid plus the auctions. And I can see it, but what do you think? No?
I think the Power Grid part's a reach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was interesting.
The Carcassonne part, I guess, is there but you don't have to fit tiles together. You can just fit them anyway. If the train tracks don't connect, no problem. You just won't be able to move peeps along that track.
I gotcha. Okay. All right.
Anyway, I think I'm going to give the game a rating on our 1 to 6 scale of an awesome solid 4.
Okay, which is above average, something that if you didn't already own, you would consider going out and buying. Not necessarily, but possible.
And if you're an auction guy and you like a tableau builder, go get it.
Yeah, like I said, I've only played it once. I really enjoyed my play. There's a reason that you put it in one of our 3 challenge games.
Indeed.
So we're definitely going to be playing this in the upcoming weeks. I'm looking forward to it.
That's 20th century. All right, Edward.
Sir.
I understand you're going to lead us on a discussion of Ground Floor.
Yeah, let's roll into it. So, Ground Floor, Published in 2012, designed by David Short. The artist is Ariel Sione, I think is how you pronounce it. I apologize if not. Published by Tasty Minstrel Games, originally on Kickstarter. Plays 2 to 6 players, and the published playtime is 90 to 150 minutes. As far as availability and cost, I've seen it as cheap as maybe $20-25 set used secondhand on the BGG marketplace.
Okay.
But online, I've seen it for going about $40-45 online.
Okay.
And I'm noticing though lately that a lot of places are out of stock. I don't know about Tasty Minstrel's site directly.
Okay.
It may be available, but it can be found. I know it's on Amazon, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
As far as plays and player counts that I have experienced, I've played it 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I've played it now 9 or 10 times. And I'll be honest, I've enjoyed it across all those player counts. How about you?
I played once 5-player, but it was eons ago, and I can't even count that. I've played 3-player twice and 6-player once.
Okay, cool. So sadly, rolling into kind of scalability here, sadly, I haven't played it 2-player, and I feel bad because David Short, a year and a half ago or so, asked if I'd write a review of the game, and I said, well, I want to play it 2-player first, so I haven't written that review because I haven't played it 2-player. So I apologize, David, but hopefully this makes up for it.
Well, David, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not sure I want to play this 2-player.
I think it's better at the higher end of things. I think it plays similarly across all player counts. There's more competition in the game for spots with more players. So you and I think, see that as a positive with more competition.
I kind of think a 3-player is even kind of a training game.
I didn't mind it 3. It's not.
Well, I didn't
as
mind
tight.
it 3.
Right. It's not right.
But because it's not as tight.
Sure. Well, that kind of leads into the fact that at the Conclave recently, a couple weeks ago, we played at 6, and I got to be honest, I was really cringing at the idea because a lot of times in games, you'll see, it plays 2 to 500, or it'll play 2 to 6,
up to 8 players,
right? And you would never consider playing it at the higher end. A good example of that is something like Caverna. I have no interest playing that game 6 players. The amount of downtime would just
7.
be. Oh, it plays 7?
Yeah.
Oh, God. It's even worse. So I kind of had that initial, going into our play with 6 players. Mm-hmm. But I got to be honest, man. I was blown away at how well and how smooth and how, I guess, relatively short of a playtime it played in. And I would not hesitate to play it 6 players again.
When you consider that 4 of those players were essentially noobs, Paul Chad had played before, but his play had been a long time ago too, so he had to be retaught, and the other guys were noobs. Given that consideration, and everyone got what was being taught to them, they minded their AP. No one really AP'd, and we banged that thing out, and it was awesomely competitive and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess I should throw in a caveat that with me having played it as many times as I had, I was able to kind of keep the game moving and not be a cattle prod to people, and rush people, but made sure that nobody suffered from excessive AP.
You do know it's your turn, right?
Yeah, exactly. I got nothing. I was blown away and very pleasantly surprised at how well it played 6 players, both in lack of downtime, keeping things moving, and how short of a playtime, relatively speaking, that it was.
Yep.
So, definitely from 3 to 6, can definitely recommend it, I think.
Indeed.
So Ground Floor is a business-themed worker placement game where the overall goal is to develop your business and expand and upgrade your corporate headquarters. Players do this by upgrading their existing offices in their corporate headquarters building, as well as growing upward, quite literally, by adding new floors to your building. Throughout the game, players will take actions such as hiring new employees, which garner them more time markers, which are essentially the workers that they use to gain those resources, the money and information in the game. Players then take those resources and turn those into new floors and building upgrades and tenant improvements that will provide the victory points that they need to win the game. The game takes place over a series of up to 9 rounds, with each round broken up into 5 phases. Receive income, hire employees, schedule business, and conduct business, which those 2 are kind of the meat of the game. And then finally, there's a cleanup phase or a reorganize phase of the game. The game ends, like I said, either at the end of the 9th round or at the end of the round where any player builds their 6th or more floor. And that's pretty much that's it in a nutshell. So let's talk components and graphic design.
Let's do that.
Before we get into the meat of this. Let's start there. Your thoughts on the components specifically?
Love them. I think they're very good. All the chits are nice and thick. Everything is very well produced.
Well, the box itself is bulletproof, I think.
That's like 4mm thick cardboard.
Yeah,
or
it's ridiculous how thick and sturdy the actual box itself is.
That's a heavy game.
It's heavy cardboard, literally.
Yes.
The board itself has a real nice finish to it. Mm-hmm. Really thick player boards. The chits, or I guess the money and the information in the game, are thick cardboard.
Yeah.
All the time markers and the goods are all wooden cubes or wooden discs. The CEOs are little resin pieces.
Yes.
Which, I got to be honest, the bottom side, they don't always sit flat because there's little nubs or here and there.
Purple guy looks like he had a little too much to drink. He kind of wobbles. You can file that down.
Yeah, exactly. You file a little sandpaper or whatever, sits flush, no worries. So I got to be honest, I was really happy with the component quality on this. As far as the graphic design, I think it's pretty clear. The player boards have almost like a player aid printed on. It's a step-by-step of all the phases of the game and what takes place. So I think that was smart placement by Tasty Minstrel to put that there. There's also a player aid which shows all the floors and the tenant improvements and all the bonuses that those give. So that's useful as well. I kind of have a bit of a gripe, though.
One too.
As far as component or graphic design is, which floor is it? Like, the game's called ground floor, so your tableau, your actual player board is floor 1.
Yeah.
And so being able to figure out, okay, is this my 2nd or 3rd floor or 4th floor that I'm building? How do you count that?
The first tile I place is my 2nd floor. It's kind of weird.
Right, and so that's a little less than clear, kind of.
And we're saying that because we've seen that in the games.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's not clear to people all the times.
Even a guy who's played it as much as I have, I still struggle with that unless I recently played the game and, it's fresh in my head.
Sure.
The Kickstarter, one of the stretch goals, I believe it was this kind of almost like a ruler type thing to where it showed which floor.
Right, you just lay it right down by your tableau.
And it shows, this is your 2nd, this is your 3rd, etc.
Right.
Which, that was fantastic. That was great. But I feel like that should have been kind of in the base game.
Yeah, you can get it at the BGG Geek Store. If Tasty Minstrel makes another copy of the game, another reprint of the game, I hope that's included.
Right, yeah, it shouldn't be kind of an add-on type thing. But other than that, the only other graphic design...
Well, I got one.
Oh, go for it. Go ahead.
The info chits and the money chits are pretty small.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I
just
how'd that go?
It's like 2 cube size,
Yeah, they are small.
Yeah.
And when you have big clodhoppers, I get that. So I have one other little thing, and the only real explanations that I've needed to do after teaching the game is in the advertising agency. Where players get bonus time markers added there, or if they don't,
the 3 different ones,
right? And so I think it's clear, but it can be a little confusing until you learn it. Until it kind of okay, I get it. I go here, so I get a bonus one. The other one is just showing that you get 1 time marker. The one that was there, you get. You don't get any bonuses. But other than that, I would say overall, well done on the graphic design as well.
Totally. What do you think about the rule book and its clarity and quality? Because I I don't own a copy currently, and
Right.
I've never even seen the rule book.
Really?
Yeah.
Never.
Never.
Wow.
You
Okay.
taught the game every time I've seen it.
Yeah, I guess there's been no need, provided you
Right.
trust me that I taught it right.
Wait a minute.
How
many did you lose?
The rule book's really easy and well laid out. There are tons of pictures. There's little Post-it notes, like, they're printed on there, but they look like Post-it notes for little reminders of things and stuff.
That's kind of clever.
Yeah, it is. There are plenty of examples, and there's a really, really good example in the rule book for the advertising agency and the way to resolve that, because it can get really, really crowded when you're playing 5 and 6 players, and it can be a little confusing. Do I do it on popularity order, here, here, and here, or do I do it in a certain order? And the example was perfect. Cleared up any questions that players may have on that. I'll be honest, I think maybe once or twice throughout all my plays I've had to reference rules questions on BGG. So the fact that I haven't needed to do that often tells me that the rule book has done a good job explaining everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd give it high marks as far as rule books go.
Awesome. So this is the part of the review where we talk about what makes the game medium or heavy.
Which in this case, I feel like it's a step up from medium, but it's definitely not heavy. So maybe somewhere in between, I think is fair.
Yeah, I think a medium heavy is in that realm.
Yeah. So we break it down. We have 5 criteria, or 5 different things that we discuss. First one's complexity. Second, planning. Third, luck and random factors. Game length and getting it.
Yes.
Like how long it takes to get the game. So let's start off in complexity.
Okay.
I don't think the rules are that hard to grok. As far as rules overhead, I think that's pretty low in this game. I think it's pretty easy as far as rules go.
Yeah, the only thing we've seen, we already alluded to it, trip people up in terms of rules complexity is the rules around how much additional cost of money and information it costs for each floor, because there's a base cost and an incremental cost, and until you've screwed that up, sometimes people don't get that right up. And that is a little complex, and the ruler helps with that, but I think that's really about the only thing complexity-wise I've seen people have problems with.
Yeah, makes sense. I feel like the game flows in a logical manner, and it's very procedural. Like you're going to do, if the game, for every round, for every round in the game, you're going to follow the exact same steps in the exact same order, and with it being a worker placement, all the buildings, if you will, all the different things are going to resolve in the same order every turn. And so that, I think that helps make it a little bit easier to learn and to understand as far as that goes. There are 5 choices of things to do on the main board, and then there's 6 on your own player board. So there are a lot of options. I mean, you're looking at any given time a minimum of 11 options. And as you add floors and you add tenant improvements and upgrades, those are going to give you even more options. So players can get maybe a little lost, I guess, and overwhelmed with a plethora, Jefe,
Where do I
choices.
Put a worker?
Right. What do I do? And not only that, but when do I do it? You know what I mean? So I feel like there's some depth as far as the decision making. There's depth of complexity there, or I should say, it gets most of its complexity from the decision tree, not the rules overhead. Is what a long way to say. So let's roll into planning. So this is the meat of the game. I mean, this is the entire game almost, I would say. As far, the ultimate goal is to score victory points.
Right.
And each player has to figure out the best way to go about doing that. Just like, I mean, most Euros are going to be like that. But there's a lot of different paths to take. We're all going to end up in the same place. We're all fighting.
Hopefully.
We're all fighting to build floors. In the end, that's what you're trying to do, because floors equal victory points.
Right.
But how you go about getting your money and your information might be a little bit different than the way I do it, different than the way, Dave does it, et cetera, right. and just oodles of choices and paths in which to take.
To plan for.
Right.
See, I think of the planning in this game as more of an exercise in budgeting. than planning, because the two currencies, information and money, have to be budgeted, because every action you take out there is going to cost either money or it's going to cost info or a little both.
Right.
And so how do I budget what I have versus what's coming in my income phase, and what am I earning through this turn, so that I can spend the 4 money and 4 info to just put a worker in the construction yard, so that I can then spend more money and more info to build a floor.
I got you. No, that actually,
I plan it on a budget basis.
Interesting. I like the way that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot. You got anything else as far as planning goes?
The fact that I think of it as a budgeting exercise is probably surprising my wife right now. She doesn't think I know how to budget.
That's funny. I'm laughing because Amanda is probably going to be thinking the same thing, or maybe she's like, oh, maybe that's why he doesn't think of it that way. Because that's funny. So let's roll into luck and random factors.
Let's do that.
All right. So I would argue that this has a little bit more randomness in it than our typical wheelhouse type game. So
processing.
Okay. All right. So first off,
we don't share notes. So
yeah. So first off, we have the initial turn order. Every game's got some kind of randomness as far as that goes. Heck,
often a given.
Even 18XX has that, right? But then there's the economic forecast cards, okay? And those are going to do those are going to impart 2 different types of randomness in there. Limited randomness, I should say. The first thing is it's going to control the job market as far as how many workers and how expensive are they going to be to hire.
If it's a depression, it's going to be cheaper to hire workers, and there'll be more workers available.
Right, because they're out of work.
If it's a boom, well, there's fewer workers and they cost more to hire.
Right. No, and that makes sense.
Right. And you're saying that's random because of the way the deck is structured.
Sure. Well, and within, even though, let's say we're in a stable economy, just because, these 2 cards, the current one and the future one, it says stable, there's still a range within that that it could be, 2 to 4, say, for instance.
Right.
And along with that, not only does it control the job market, but it also dictates how many customers are going to buy from the retail outlets.
Right.
Again, those are going to have the same range.
Right.
But that one thing is going to impact or impart 2 different types of randomness. Controlled randomness, or limited randomness, I think is the right way to put it.
Well, I think what you're saying is, because you see the card says boom, and you know the range.
Because that's on your player board, it shows that, right? And
it's a higher range, too, as opposed to the range for like a depression might be 0 to 1 versus 2 to 4 or something. So even the ranges are different, but you still you see what's coming. You don't know the exact value of the 2 to 4. It might be a 3, might be a 2, might be a 4, but there's 2 to 4 coming up.
Right. My point is that one thing has multiple randomness to it. Am I conveying that? Is that making sense?
I'm just like going back to what you originally said about it, more randomness than games that we normally play or like in a game and stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with that, because I think this random it's akin, I think, to the random of the demand tiles and automobile. Right? You know the range. You know what's going to be. It's going to fall in there somewhere. It's not really all that random. It's not like, okay, here's this card. Oh crap!
All right, that's fair. No,
it's not bad. It's not bad random. And you know how I feel about random.
Well, and there is kind of, and I don't know if I would call this randomness, because it is player controlled, but it's not necessarily your player control. And what I mean by that is there's 2 different ways that the game can end. The game could conceivably go all 9 rounds, and then whoever has the most points wins. That's it. Or if a player will end it, or possibly multiple players could trigger the end,
on the same round of the floors,
by building their 6th or more floor. Right. And so I don't know if that's necessarily a random factor in it. It's more of a player-driven, timer kind of variability.
Right. Yeah, I don't. I agree. I don't think that's a random.
Okay.
Considered a random.
Okay.
But it's definitely a variable that you need to consider while you're playing.
Right.
This game may or may not go 9 rounds. Guess what? It's not, probably.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've never played a game yet that's gone the full 9 rounds.
Yeah.
I played some that
I haven't
thought
seen
it may, but it ended in the 8th round.
Yeah.
So more often than not, it's going to end by a player or players triggering the end of the game early.
Right.
So moving on into game length. Mm-hmm. I don't know that the game, the length adds much to the weight. Now, with a caveat for if anyone out there who's new is listening, for us, an hour and a half to 2.5 hour game is a standard game. I don't feel like that's anything in that range.
That's a short game.
Well, well, my point is, it's not going to add that range. There is not going to contribute.
No.
To the weight of the game, I don't feel like.
For us.
Right. So with that in mind, I don't feel like the game length contributes to that at all.
Yeah, I've read some, horror stories from people on BGG about, oh my God, with 3 players it took 4 hours, and
you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you're APing everything, or you've got something wrong,
or you're not planning out the majority of your turn,
right.
Or at least contingency plans when it's not your turn. You should be fully engaged, where that shouldn't be happening.
Right. And there is enough cooking to engage you.
Right. And let me ask you: do you feel like the game plays? Does it run long? Does it feel right for what it is, or what?
I feel that it has a appropriate length.
Yeah, I do too. And it moves surprisingly well. And we harped on this earlier about the player count. Like even with 6 players, as long as people are moving it along, it's humming pretty well.
Well, maybe the extended length for some is all about getting it. How long do you think it takes a new person to get it?
I think after only a couple of rounds, it should start to click.
Mm-hmm. The mechanics of placing your time workers, for sure, real quick,
and seeing how expensive it is to build the floors, because to be able to go to the construction company area, you need 4 information and 4 money, or as we call it, 4 and 4, because right. So that's just to place your time marker there in the location to say, hey, I am making it available so I can buy something.
I'm going to pick something.
Right, either a floor or a tenant improvement. Right. And then, if it's your first floor, it's 4 and 4 more.
Right.
So the first floor, check that. The second floor, the first built floor, costs 8 and 8 total. It costs 4 and 4 to place it during the schedule business. Kind of a lot like in Dominant Species, how you're placing out all your time markers going around the table and everything.
Resolution.
Right? And then resolve it. But then you have time to get the extra time and the extra the extra information and the extra money to be able to pay for those extra floors.
Because that resolves last, the building of the floors and the TI. So as the different areas resolve, you could
acquire
what you need to build those things. So you're taking a bit of a exposure there.
Right. So to circle back, I feel like it may take a couple turns or a couple rounds to be able to see how that works and everything. But I would say that it may take an entire game to see kind of the way the game flows and how that flow changes as to what actions are more important at different times in the game. So you're looking at me like I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I just don't think the flow changes.
Well, okay, let me
I think the
throw
game
this
is
at you.
linear.
See, and I disagree. The reason is, say the networking area, right?
The advertising.
Yeah, the advertising.
Right?
I'm sorry.
Advertising
Thank you. Right.
and the broadcast.
Right. So in advertising, that's going to dictate turn order and the resolution for the rest of that turn and going into the next next round, right? Early on, and I'd say through the mid game, it's going to be fairly contested. Late game, I feel like it kind of the game gets away from that at times.
Wow.
And focuses more on other areas to where when there's a big rush on building floors, because, again, that's the trigger for the end of the game.
Yeah, I don't see that at all. I think that advertising specifically, the only time it becomes less important to me is if I acquire the tenant improvement that prevents my popularity from dropping.
Right, from regressing, right.
Because otherwise, you're always needing to invest something in the advertising to keep your popularity up, because popularity is turn order. And that's pretty important on a lot of things like building floors. I want my choice. I'll get this, and then you can pick. And the bonuses, and for selling goods at the retail stores. So for me, the only time, and I like that tenant improvement. Can you tell?
Sure.
I get it
Right.
like every time.
Right.
That's when advertising wanes for me, is when I've got my popularity up so high that I'm really just not worried about it. I don't have to go there as much.
Okay,
but you're always needing to keep your popularity up. Otherwise, I don't.
See, I feel like the flow of the game changes based on player needs. So maybe not as a whole for player.
What game does not?
Well, sure, but seeing the way that it flows and the way it changes, I do feel like the game change. Maybe I'm doing a terrible job of conveying this, but I just think that there's an evolution in the way, even though it's procedural and everything resolves in the same order, there's emphasis is put in different areas at different times in the game, and it may take a player the whole game to see that kind of wavelength.
The only time I see that, like retail market, when you're selling your cubes to the demand, I'll see that wane and wax based on the economy. If the game is going to say, I'm going to buy 5 of them suckers, everybody's putting their cubes out there to get sold. But if it's depression, there's 1 or 2, it's like, people are backed off unless they want to gamble a little bit, right? So
I guess
if there is an ebb and flow or a fluctuation in the pursuit of certain actions, I think it's going to be economy driven.
Okay,
maybe that's my take.
We'll agree to disagree.
Good talk
on that,
either way.
But yeah, that's
good
fine.
talk.
Right. So what makes the game fun? Like, why are people going to want to play this game?
Well, first thing on my list is there's 2 currencies involved in the game. The money and the info we've talked about. And those are the same currencies that are in business. There's money and there's information, right? There's knowledge and there's cash flow.
Right.
And unless you're Apple, both of those things are in tight supply. And you really need to balance your acquisition and your spending, hence the budgeting, of both of those currencies to not get hosed.
Yeah, because you're going to find in the game, sometimes you're going to be flush with cash and information poor, and vice versa.
And that's a bad thing.
Right, because you want to maintain a balance, because a lot of times, in most things, it's going to require both.
Yeah.
And
every action costs something to take.
Well,
except for your personal ones on your tableau.
Sure, that just uses time.
Yeah.
First thing that I want to point out is it's aesthetically pleasing that you just see your building physically grow. Yeah. So you have your tableau out here, and you're laying out floors,
right?
And so it's building. It's drawn in 3D, but it's only in 2D. It's not like Legos, which would have been cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's still aesthetically pleasing to actually see what you're building. Plus, those floors are giving you kind of rule breakers or special power-up type things.
That tableau where you're building those floors, you have like a little floor plan of 6 rooms that's in your business, and they all do wonderful things for you, but you can acquire better versions of those rooms and put those on there too. So that's just another cool way you can see that grow.
Well, on that same note, there's really interesting decisions to be made between I kind of want to say more marginal benefits here on your player board. Yeah. So you spend time and, okay, maybe it's not the strongest move out there, but it's not contested because it's on my tableau. It's my office, right? Or you kind of have to decide and juggle between doing that and going out there into the world, so to speak, and fighting with everybody for the better benefits.
Right.
And you have to figure out which is more important at what time,
Right.
and the timing of doing that.
The timing, because sometimes you can play on your own tableau as like a stall.
Yes.
And see what other people are doing. But that comes with a cost because, like in our worker placement discussion, we talked about when you place your time markers, your workers in this game, everything cost. But it's incrementally more. So if you're the first one to that spot, it might have cost you 1 money and 1 time, or 1 info rather.
Right.
The next guy is going to pay 2 money and 2 info. The next guy 3 and 3.
Or
so you're stalling with a bit of a risk of increase.
Right. And if it doesn't cost more, then there's a loss of choice, maybe,
Right.
to where the order in which, okay, I was there first, I get first dibs on something.
Right.
Whereas it may have cost you the same thing to be in there
Right.
as well, but you're getting last licks.
Right. There
maybe.
is some sort of cost involved.
Right. So the consulting firm,
Yeah.
it rewards players who correctly read other players' positions in regards to information. So let me explain what the consulting firm is. So that's going to be, for most players, the main way they're going to get information. And how that works is you take one of your time markers off your player board and put it out there, and it's a decreasing amount of money that it actually costs. I believe it starts with either $5 or $6, and then it's $1 less to go there the second time, or for the next player, so on and so forth. But going there, when you schedule business, you place your marker there, you pay that amount of money.
Right.
During the conduct business, it just slides over. Nothing else happens. That's it. The following turn, when players place out there and they pay to put onto those
Right.
spots, if someone has backed up, so you have a marker out there, if someone has backed you up out there, then they will push you out, and that's how you get your 10 information.
Right.
And so I love that you kind of have to judge whether or not you can afford to go, say, 5th down on that track, because you have to think, okay, I went 5th here. Somebody's going to have to go 5th, or
Right.
place 5 markers out there total to be able to get that 10 information. And it's a fine gamble, or an
is a gamble.
educated gamble
Yeah.
on that.
Unlike the other spots where placement is usually more expensive, placement in the consulting firm is cheaper, but the risk is higher.
Right, because you pay less money, but you're taking that risk that no one's going to back you up.
Right.
Because if no one backs you up, you know what you don't get? You're out the money, and you don't get your
That's right.
information.
And I think that's very thematic with consulting companies because they're a risk.
Very cool. Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah.
So speaking of thematic, in my head, I think that 90% of the games of Euro games are pasted on theme, and I don't give a crap about theme. This one I feel is thematic. I really feel like I'm running a business and making decisions about getting my money, my income, and my information income so I can spend them to boop, 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 put floors on my building, which is not just victory points, but they help me in my efforts.
Right, the special abilities or better,
Right.
more efficient.
This is one of the games where I actually feel a theme.
Yeah, I think the business theme comes through. I agree. So the factory spaces. Speaking, kind of going back to what I was saying a minute ago about gambling, right?
Yeah.
Those are calculated gambles as well. And the reason is, instead of it being fully relatable to other players, the variability. Boy, I'm having a hard time talking today. The variability
What's
of
in
the,
that Coke?
don't worry about it. Of the economic forecast plays a really big part, because we talked about that's going to dictate how many customers are going to buy at the retail outlets. Right. So even though the economy, let's say you're in a depression and maybe there's only 0 to 2 goods that are going to be bought, you still may see players go over there more than 2 players for a couple of reasons. One, it might be a gamble to try and get an extra $6 or $8 if they happen to be higher in turn order, so that they're able to sell their goods.
Higher in popularity, that's the turn order.
Right. Or, and this I think is pretty cool, that let's say you're $1 or $2 short for being able to do whatever it is you're trying to do, say to build another floor.
Right.
You could spend 2 money. I think it's 2 money, 2 information, and 1 good to be able to go to the retail out or to go to the factory and then to be able to place it out and potentially
into the market.
Right. Sell your goods at the retail outlets. Well, if you're $1 or $2 short, it might make sense to take that gamble because you're thinking, if it doesn't sell, I can always liquidate it for a few bucks, and that gives me that extra dollar that I was short. Yes, was it efficient? No, it was terrible because you used the good and used a couple of information.
Well,
but if you're desperate, there's an option, and there's always that chance for a windfall that you actually sell your good for way more money than you ever expected. Rock on,
In so many of our games that we play, how often do we say, "Oh, I'm $1 short"?
Sure, absolutely.
As inefficient as that is, that's that dollar.
Right.
Right. You can get it.
So another thing here, the time markers, right? So when you hire employees, because you start out as the CEO of your company, well, you're the CEO of your company, but you're the only employee.
You are the one.
And you start out with 4 time markers, which are essentially your time markers, which are your workers.
Right. In a worker placement sense.
Right, but not as employees. Right. As you hire new employees, for each time that you hire a new employee, you do have to take time markers to train them, which again, thematic, because you have to train your employees.
Yeah.
That gives you 3 more time markers to be able to use. So for every employee, you have to pay more money, and by pay I mean you get less income each round.
Right.
Because you don't get to keep it all now. Now you have to, right. But you get more time markers. And this kind of goes all the way back to what you were talking about stalling. We all may have different amounts of employees. You may have 4, including the CEO. I may have 2. Somebody else might have 2, might have 3, whatever. So we all have different amounts of time markers. And some of the actions that we take, whether it's on or especially on our tableau, some cost multiple time markers to be able to go there.
Right.
So there's one floor that allows you to take 4 time markers and place it there, and you get to go out to the construction company without paying the 4 and 4, the 4 money and the 4 information. Right. And so it's kind of which is more important? Is it time markers or is it money and information? But it allows you, if you have more time markers, you can spend them one at a time on something that only takes 1 on your tableau to be able to stall, to hope that somebody backs you up, and you can always wait and be like, okay, I got this $4 in reserve in case somebody doesn't back me up, but I'm hoping they will. Oh, wait. Thanks, Dave. He did back me up. Now I have these time markers.
I've only got 2 left. Somebody please back me up. You're saying this in your head before I have to do it myself.
Right. As a last resort, I will go there to make sure that I get the information.
Thank God.
Right. But now I don't
but you
have
don't
to.
say that.
No, you play it totally cool. Yeah, poker face. But no, I really love that stalling effect that that you can do, and it's almost a game of chicken, but only if the players realize what you're trying to do. But if they see you're third down on that consulting firm and only 1 has been backed up and there's 2 more, people are going to know you're going to stall, and we're just going to wait and try and wait you out and force you to spend that money that you didn't want to spend.
It can get mean over there.
It's
rough.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I think that right there is one of my very favorite things about this game.
One thing that I like about the game is I'm never bored playing ground floor. Regardless of how many people are playing, there's plenty for me to keep track of the other players and think about, okay, in my budgeting, I need to do this, this, and this. What's going on? You just went there. Crap, that's going to cost me $2 more. Yes, I can afford that. I'm also going to have to go. I'm never. There's no downtime in my head when I'm playing ground floor.
Yeah, there shouldn't be.
No.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, ground floor, like many games. There's some things we maybe don't like quite so much.
Yeah, I mean, no game's perfect, right?
No game's perfect.
Maybe Arboretum? Couldn't find a fault on that. Anyway, moving on. We harped on this earlier. Maybe not harped, but we mentioned it earlier. The keeping track of the floors. And,
Right.
okay, is it my second floor? And how much? Is it 6 and 6 or is it 8 and 8? Is it whatever? And how many floors is it? Is it my sixth one built or my fifth one built that triggers the end of the game? And I feel like there could have been something that they could have done to make it clearer to where it's like maybe I get thematically this is your ground floor, this is your first floor, your tableau, but it's just I struggle with that at least, and I don't think I'm the only one that has struggles with it.
Until I got to use the ruler, I would always have to look at the board and recalculate it, and yeah, I agree with that.
So the little cheater sticks help.
That helps me big time.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Ground floor has a rep for being a bit dry. There's nothing. There's no like, wow, did you really just pull that off? Type moves and stuff like that, which doesn't bother
Either one of us, I don't think.
dorks like us. We don't mind dry games like that. But that's certainly maybe a negative for some.
And I wonder if that might be one of two reasons, possibly, on why I see it for sale so much secondhand in BGG auctions and whatnot. The other reason being that I wonder if maybe there's a false sense of what the game is. And what I mean by that is it's you look at it and you think it's an economic game, right? And it's not. It's a business theme, worker placement, maybe resource conversion game. And I kind of hit on that in my original overview.
Right.
And so I feel like if you go into the game expecting it to be an economic game, you're going to be surprised. Right. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I would say it's a bad thing in a sense that if you expect it to be one thing, it should be that thing.
Yeah.
If you go in expecting it and it's not, even if you don't mind that type of game, it might turn you off to the game because you expected it to be something else.
Yeah, I think, for you and me, when we think of an economic game, we're thinking of cash value, right? Some sort of company valuation is the winning conditions.
18XX, Arc, right? Panamax even, right?
Yeah. Right. That to us, that's an economic game. This has some economic elements to it, but the victory conditions are victory points.
Right.
And, like that, the stage 3 floors are all about bonus victory points on top of the things you've already maybe built. And so it's that last round even, or the last 2 rounds where you're trying to build the final floors in your company. It's kind of gamey in terms of, I can get this one, and that's times 3, so that's 15 victory points right there, So,
right.
As opposed to a monetary valuation of like an economic game.
Yeah, and again, I think that might be maybe the second or maybe a different reason as to why I see so many, which is a shame because it's a really good game. I really enjoyed this game. Yeah. But I wonder if maybe a couple of those reasons might be, and I don't know if that's necessarily on the publisher as far as, maybe they represented it wrong, or if it's on us, the players, who might have the wrong preconceived notion of what the game is. I don't know which it is, but I feel like there is that just disconnect. I feel like it's
Fair.
And I don't know where it comes from, but as long as you understand what it is that you're getting into, it's a really good game.
Something else that sends me once in a while is late in the game, maybe you've got several employees, so you've got an abundance of time. And the advertising seems almost a non-decision sometimes. I'm going to send these workers over there. It's kind of a pissing match of who's going where. And
to be able to keep up in the player turn order, you're saying,
it's just,
right?
It's like, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. I don't. It loses
scripted?
Some of its punch.
It's not so. Yeah, maybe scripted. Do you feel like you have to be able to keep up with the Joneses?
It's just forced non-decision.
Okay, all right, and I can see that. You got anything else?
No.
All right. Well, I think that's a good thing.
All right, so my summary for Ground Floor is that this is a literally and figuratively very well-assembled game. The theme is quite apparent to me and my tastes. The gameplay, the mechanics are definitely in my wheelhouse. This is great competitive fun, even with 6, and I really think that's an unusual accomplishment.
Yeah, the 6 thing is still kind of has me shocked, to be honest. So for a summary for me, I would say as long as you're looking for a business-themed game and you're a fan of worker placement and resource conversion, then I think this is a really, really good representative in that genre.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 6, 1 on the low end, 6 on the high, my rating for this game is that I'd really love to give the game a 5 because I think it's fantastic. If the victory point thing was more economic...
Okay. But isn't that on you?
No.
You don't think so? All right.
Don't make me think that.
Go ahead,
I'm never wrong. No. The game would definitely be a 5 for me, given everything else, if the victory point thing was more economic than victory points. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to give it a 4, which is an awesome, very, very good game that should be considered for a collection.
All right. For different reasons, but similar result.
Okay.
I had it at like 4 3/4, so that makes it a 4. So if it's not a 5,
4.99 is a 4.
Is a 4, right. I feel like it's, like I said in my summary, a really good representative for what it is.
Yeah.
It's a really good game, and the thing that almost sends it to a 5 for me is the fact that it plays 6 really well as long as you keep it moving. And I have it. I'm glad I own it, and I will not be getting rid of you will not see my copy in a BGG auction anytime soon.
I will not acquire this for $25 in an auction? Damn.
Sorry. Well, no, it's not to say you won't. You just won't acquire that one. Right.
Right on.
All right. So that's Heavy Cardboard's take on Ground Floor. All right. So I thought that was a pretty good, fun discussion on Ground Floor. Good breakdown on the review.
I enjoyed it a lot.
So
good back and forth on a couple things, too.
I think so, yeah. And hopefully the listeners enjoy it as well.
We're good friends, but we don't always see eye to eye.
Which makes for good conversation, I think, right? So, time for Ask the Elephant. And as our listeners know, this is where fans of the show can come in and go into our BGG guild and pose questions to us in the thread, the Ask the Elephant, for the upcoming episode.
Could be about the game or whatever.
It could be about God knows anything. We haven't had too many off the wall, but I figure by me saying that now we will.
Thanks.
42. The answer is always 42. All right, so Bryant at H asks, which medium or heavy game do you enjoy solo, or at least have heard from others offer a good solo option? I've heard some say that Glass Road has a good solo option, for instance. So let me preface and say that you and I are not, outside of the occasional war game, or maybe playing it by ourselves to learn the game, we don't play much by way of solo games.
No.
That's not to say, not to disparage them, just we don't do it.
I like people around the table. I need that.
Right, and that's part of the reason I don't play a lot of board games online, like Board Game Arena, etc.
No, same.
So I know that Mage Knight is popular, as are a lot of Uwe Rosenberg games, Gates of Loyang, Fields of Arla. However, I'll be honest, and we don't plug other shows too often on our show, but when it comes to solo gaming, a fan of the show, buddy Travis, he and a couple of his friends or fellow gaming partner, whatever, they started a new podcast called Low Player Count, and I would really recommend checking that out.
Yeah.
And also, to be honest, Bryant, maybe start a thread in our guild and ask folks. There are plenty of people that play solo games. So like I said, outside of wargaming, we don't do much, so I bet you that would be an awesome place to ask.
I did try Fields of Arla solo one time, but I felt like it was a training game. I was learning how to play the game through the solo game.
To be able to teach it for the most part,
I actually
right?
played it. I set it up to play solo because I wanted to experience it solo. And that's why it felt like a training game to me. So
Okay, all right.
maybe not all solo games are created equal.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Brian F. has a question for us. He says, what games are you looking forward to playing at HeavyCon?
Yes.
And is there anything newish that will get its debut play for you guys at the con?
All right, so you take this one first.
All right, I'm looking forward, as we said, to playing all of the games on that list, but I did pick one that I want to play in particular, and that's Container. I just think it's a brilliant sandbox game.
It's fantastic.
Just amazing.
A good economic game.
It is an oh yes, on so many levels. And potentially we're going to play a prototype from the Heavy Cardboard Lab.
If people want to. We're not going to push it. Yeah.
Right.
So for me, and this is as much the game as it is the players, I should say, in this. And that's going to be Democker for me, the game I'm probably most looking forward to. I mean, there's a ton of games that I'm looking forward to playing.
Yeah.
But Mike, who I think asks a question here later on, I call him German Mike because we have a million Mikes in our game group, and so it helps me keep them separate. So German Mike, I played with him, Kevin, Openface Chad, and a couple other guys at BGGCon, a game of Democker, and we just had such a good time. I'm so excited to play that again, partially because he's going to be in the game, and just really looking forward to it. As far as what other games that are going to be new to me that I'm looking forward to, Maria. It's sat on my shelf for over a year, haven't gotten it to the table yet. Plus, I don't have to teach it. I don't have to learn from the rule book.
Right.
God's Playground, Namibia, got it right, which is a cool mining game that's hard to get here in the States that I have a copy of. I'm anxious to get it played. High Frontier is a game that, again, I don't want to learn it from the rule book. I want someone to teach it to me.
Yeah.
So I know there's some interest on people teaching that.
High Frontier is going to factor into another question.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. But, I mean, and like you said, I hope we get some folks interested in trying our version or riff off of a different take of Indonesia.
Right on.
So, if not, so be it. But if so, great.
Awesome.
So Eric L. asks, basically, you gents often refer to both Venus and Kanban, but what are your thoughts on CO2? Well, for me, I've only played it once, and it really didn't go over real well with our gaming group. And I'm not exactly sure why. I think maybe it had to do with the semi-co-op nature of the game. And let's face it, you and I in particular, Amanda's not, most people in our group, Paul, Chad, all that, aren't big into co-ops. No. So I think the semi-co-op nature of the game kind of turned people off, but also the lack of control and being able to build specific plants when you want to frustrated some people. Like, there's a 3-step process in the game, and if I do step 1 or step 2, you can come in and do step 3. And some people, it didn't sit well, the fact that, well, why am I doing that for you to help you out type thing. I'm willing to play it again. I'm willing to try it because the dynamics, I am, because the dynamics of our game group have changed away from the people I played it with the first time. So I'm willing to give it another go. But yeah, it just didn't hit me. It didn't, catch me,
hearing all that and some other feedback on the game, I really am not interested in playing it. In the semi co-op, we like to co-op each other into the poorhouse when we're playing, not other ways. So, I wouldn't say I'd not play it, but someone would have to bring it to the table and convince me to play it.
Well, it is Vital's game, and we are fans of his game. So
that would be why I'm not saying that I'm not willing to try it.
Fair enough.
Deference to Vital.
Okay,
he's awesome. Right. TC. Quick question, quick answer from this kid. What is currently your favorite game from Tasty Minstrel Games?
I'm curious what yours is.
Village.
Really?
With Port and the Inn.
Okay. That made my final 2.
Yeah.
For me, I'll be honest, and it has nothing to do with the fact that we just reviewed it, but it's close. but I think I lean towards ground floor.
All right, cool.
I enjoy Village as well. I played a handful of Tasty Minstrels. We played Aquasphere,
Right.
Captains of Industry, Orleans, Scoville, Village. Enjoy them all, but I think ground floor is probably my favorite. Still want to try Homesteaders.
Yeah.
Haven't played
That's
it yet.
one we need to play.
Yeah, so, but yeah, so Village for you and ground floor for me.
Clear cut
Really?
for me.
Huh, all right.
Number 2 would be ground floor.
Okay. David A. asks, since you started doing reviews, is there a game that you've given a positive review to and now feel overstays its welcome with you? I pose that question to you, sir.
To me.
To you.
In thinking about this, the answer to this question, I only consider the games that we did as our main feature game. So none of the trailer games or anything like that.
Okay, all right.
And my answer is no. Of the games that I personally thought highly of, they're all still on my playlist.
Okay. And yeah,
Nothing overstays. I'm not tired of any of those.
I went through all our episodes. I went through our trailers and the stuff that I, did trailers for, as well as main feature reviews. And I can honestly say no. Now, sometimes I'm never always in the mood to play a game. Even through the ages or dominant species, there are times I just don't want to play the game. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean I think less of it or it's fallen out of favor. I'm just not in the mood to play the game right now. But there's nothing that I wasn't already on. And the one specific that comes to mind for me is Master of Economy. We reviewed it, we played it a bunch, and it just didn't sit well with us to begin with. And I since sold it because I'm like, I'm not interested. So it didn't increase at all. It didn't decrease, but it didn't increase after playing it either. So
Matt C. asks us, have you guys ever been drawn in by the art on a game only to find something you did not expect, good, bad, or otherwise? And I actually have a good, bad, and an otherwise
seriously
in the answer for this question.
Extra credit for you, because I do not. So, okay,
All right.
Go for it. I'm curious what these are.
So drum roll is
dude.
stunningly pretty and stunningly dull.
Yes, that is perfect on both.
I will never sell my Kickstarter Deluxe Edition because I just like to open it up and go, God, this game is beautiful. Why are you not good?
It's not that it's not good. It's just dull. Yeah. It's just blah.
Yeah, it's not good.
That, had I thought about it, I would have included that. Yes.
Kashgar is one I had some interest in, and it's just gorgeous. And that's on the plus scale.
Yeah, I didn't have high hopes, and it's
didn't know
better.
what to expect.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Marco Polo.
Okay.
Stunningly gorgeous. I have no idea if this game's what side the game's gonna fall on.
It looks good, but I don't think it's that pretty.
Well, until you fondle all the pieces and examine the detail, dude, the detail
really?
on the Dennis Lohausen.
Okay.
Out of the park.
For a guy who doesn't like baseball. I digress.
Well, can't kick a football out of a stadium.
So for me, I said I really don't think so. However, I kind of went about this in a different way because I couldn't think of anything art wise. Had I thought of drum roll, that would have been it. Okay,
right.
But I didn't. So because I couldn't think of anything, I thought that was kind of a weak answer. So I went a different direction with this. And with that, I've gone into a game expecting one type of game and finding a totally different type of game.
Okay.
And the one that came to mind most recently was Rolling Stock. So,
and the art is not a draw on that.
No. It's as bland as it's stock certificates, the end, right, and company charters, and that's it. So I thought going into it, it was a stock trading kind of an investing game. And found out it's not that at all. And I don't know if that's boo on me for expecting something that it wasn't, or if it was being... I was told that it's 18xx without the operations.
Right.
Take the board out of it, and it's all the stock market stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I was super, super excited to play it.
Yeah.
And then I found out, it's not really like that. I'm not willing to write it off yet. I want to try it again.
Right.
But yeah, that one really struck me as just not what I expected it to be going in. And because of that, I felt like it was a bit of a letdown. But again, that's because of the preconceived notions I had.
That's a good one, because I had the same. The first time I played it, I was 18XX without the tracker.
Right.
And like, it was hard.
Yes.
It's a hard game.
Yeah.
But nothing what I expected either.
Okay.
Good one.
All right. So Marty D asks, what games that are in print and available would you recommend for someone looking for heavy economic games similar to Indonesia and other splatter games?
Right.
I'm considering Arkwright, and you should. It did win the Golden Elephant in 2014.
Stop considering it and
go
purchase
get it. Yeah. If you're looking heavy economic, that's
a rock star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was hoping for additional suggestions. He said Ground Floor looks like a possibility, and I'm looking forward to your review. Well, here is a perfect example that I touched on that he thinks it's a heavy economic, and it's not. It's a business sim.
Yep.
So, and when I read this, that kind of triggered that, and I was like, wait a minute. Right. So, here you go. Here's what I got. Heavy economic and in print. In print being the key.
Good thing you specified.
Because we've been getting a lot of
Flack?
good-hearted grief on Twitter about, wait a minute, is it out of print where there are only 4 copies and they were all made by a one-eyed pirate named
Bill?
Yeah. If so, then Heavy Cardboard will review it.
That's right.
But on the flip side, during post Essen, we're reviewing a lot of those games and people give us grief because saying we're Cult of the New, so we can't win either way. So, getting back to your question, Marty. Heavy economic and in print. Arkwright, excellent start. Yeah. There are multiple 18XXs that are available, whether it's 1830 or my vote for the best entry level game is 1846. It's not cheap. It's about $121, but it's available in print. You can get it right away. Brass, I thought was another good one.
Brass is awesome.
And tell me what you think of this one. And I might not have gone heavy in this one, but it's a game we've played a bunch.
Okay.
Planet Steam. What do you think? It's more medium, but it has cool stock market manipulation, kind of a dystopian type, theme. But
I enjoy Planet Steam a lot, and I mean the pieces are amazing too.
Right.
But yeah, that market mechanic is pretty darn cool.
So I think that might fit, and that's.
I think Matt's still looking for water.
So how about you? You have anything else to add to that?
One of the points in his questions was like Indonesia, and when we covered it, we said it's a pretty unique beast. So I'm going to be really hard pressed to think of anything that's like Indonesia. But I like a lot of the things you covered.
Hold on, like Indonesia. I hear there's a game in development. Anyway, moving on. Okay.
You mentioned 1846 being that I'm an 18XX noob, and I've played 1846 and I've played 1879. I like 1879 intro better than 1846 just because it's got the evil that I'm really looking for in an 18XX game. I'm not saying anything bad about 46.
I know. You can't get copies of 79 is the problem. It's a winsome...
fair enough.
And it's only...
He did say in print.
Right, but it also requires you to own 1830 because it does not come with the majority of the parts. It's almost like a variant.
But 1830 would be a good one to start with, too.
We'll agree to disagree. We'll get into that in a future episode.
Panamax is the one I came up with. It is an economic game.
It is. It has parts of an economic game,
and it's got stock and money, cash flow, and it's got personal money and it's got business money.
Sure, yeah, I could see that. I thought about it originally.
And it's awesome.
Well, agreed. But I thought the actual shipping and all that was more the focus than the stock market, or not stock, but the stocks and the economic side. It has economic aspects to it. So I think that's, and it's probably more medium heavy than heavy.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's a fair recommendation.
So I believe this is the world famous German Mike.
It is
Michael M.
Yes.
He says, "Guys, what are your thoughts on Phil Eklund? Do you like his games? Which of his games have you played or would you like to play?" I have no idea what to think of Phil Eklund. I want to play High Frontier and the BIOS Megafauna, American Megafauna things. I've only ever played PAX Porfiriana, but Porfiriana, whatever the heck it is.
Sure.
It's one of those words for me.
I was going to let it slide.
This guy he's so smart. Like some of his rules, some of his games, you have all these like living rule sets because we can't understand what he's saying, so we have to like rewrite them.
Well, I mean, to his defense,
I don't know what to think.
He truly is a rocket scientist, retired rocket scientist.
That's why he's so smart.
Right, you bring those up, and I honestly have only played Pax Porfiriana as well. I own High Frontier, BIOS Megafauna, Greenland, which I've heard whatever.
Yeah.
There's a couple more coming out that I'm anxious to try, but probably High Frontier is the one that's most
number
excited
one
to try. And I know it's more simulation than game, but I still want to experience it and find out if I like it.
Yeah.
So I can't really answer it right now, but give us a couple months, and after you teach us that, Mike, High Frontier, we might be able to give you more of a informed answer on that. All right, so for our final one, Trina asked a few different questions. So here we go. Number 1, has a game ever been too heavy for you guys, even if it wasn't necessarily too complicated? And I said, not really. There are times we're too tired to play something, and we have no business trying to play it when we do, and that's on us. That's not on the game. But otherwise, not really.
Yeah.
The one that's come closest, though, is Clinic. The reason is there's a 3D spatial aspect to this game, to where it's hard, and if you're not fresh, or at least for me, and Amanda, Amanda actually made the comment that it broke her brain, the 3D aspect of it, and it just, unless you're fresh, that one might be too hard.
It's like a Star Trek chess game, but all laid flat, where you have to like line up those things. It's hard to think about that.
So, anything for you on that?
I just said no, just in general, because we're pretty careful about who we introduce to what and how we build up people. You know, like
as far as like step them up in difficulty and weight in game.
Yeah.
So part 2, he says, sometimes for kicks, I search for board games with a weight rating higher than 4, and then do the same search but filter out all war games and 18xx games, or train games. The difference is staggering, he says. Why are so many games deemed super heavy in the field of wargaming or 18xx? So I'll start with the 18xx side.
All right.
There's a lot of math. Math is hard. And most importantly, to play well, you really have to play not only your game, but you have to play everybody else's game as well. And sure, I mean, there are a lot of games out there where you're trying to do similar, but the cascading effects of a decision that you make now might not really bear fruit until 4 hours down the road. And they're not always obvious what these effects or what these right decisions are. And it's really, really hard to grasp. And not to mention the economics of the game they're just hard.
And brutal.
Enjoyable.
And unforgiving.
And that being another kicker right there. There is no luck. There is no random. If you fall behind,
hope you have fun for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, or in an 18. I mean, here's a good example: 1830 new players, and the reason I don't recommend it for beginner players is if you're playing with anybody with any experience, if you bid $5 too much for a private company at the beginning of the game, you may have just lost the game, and you don't know it for 6 hours.
That's why you play the short game. When you learn.
Anyway,
when you learn.
But that is a good example. There is no catch-up mechanic and no nothing. So that's why in 18xx, the weight is a little bit skewed.
I think generally those games, 18xx and war games, are they're more rules complexity.
Yeah, rules dense. Right. Absolutely.
And often longer than typical European games. And that's what makes people think they're heavy.
I would also say that there's exceptions for exceptions for exceptions in a lot of rule game or in a lot of war games. Games like Paths of Glory, supposed to be a phenomenal game, but there are so many exceptions that it makes the rules dense. And that's where I think the complexity comes from. It's all in the rules overhead more so than the actual gameplay.
Right.
But yeah, I've said previously on our show that there should be two different scales. There is a Euro weight, and then there is a war game rate, weight. That a war game that's weighted at 3.0 is probably a 5.0 for Euros.
Sure.
And there's no crossover there whatsoever.
Cool.
All right, so for the last one, or I'm sorry, next to last one.
He's got 2 more pieces.
He does. All right, you want to take it?
Sure.
All right.
Still with trying it. He was thinking how a lot of new, and in parentheses, heavier Euro games tend to have a lot of mechanics that try to fit together and are seemingly less about one central idea, with the mechanics reinforcing that main idea. He's thinking about things in particular like Terra Mystica, he calls out, and some What's Your Game published titles. Do you think there is feature creep element to the heavy Euros of today?
I think it's a great question. I do think there's a difference between the more classic Euros and the more modern Euros. Take a couple games like El Grande or Calis, to where they are all centered around one mechanic and done it really, really well.
Right.
Whereas now, you take a game like Madeira, which is a What's Your Game game, and you have a bunch of different mechanics meshed together, but meshed together really, really well. I think there's a place for both of them, and I think you and I we look at it from hey, we really dig that integration, and so we might lean more towards that integration. But I do think that there is a disconnect, and I don't know when this took place, when this transition from more one mechanic to this, but it's been fairly recent, but I don't know where that line was.
Yeah, I think it's something that is in modern game design now in general. You know, we often hear the term, in fact, maybe too often, it's a mishmash of mechanics.
Or complexity for complexity's sake, which I hate both those.
Yeah. It's the landscape of what's going on in design today. Sometimes it works out, sometimes not so much.
Yeah, and just because a game's heavy doesn't mean we like it.
Right. Let's see. The last question then is, how the heck do you guys get players for these things so frequently? By things, I'm assuming he means all the games we've been playing and talking about. And we have a circle of like-minded friends and friends of the show, as well as just of us, that we get together regularly and play games.
Yeah, it all stemmed from one local game group.
Yeah.
And they tend to skew a little bit lighter, for the not always, but a little bit. And we found some of us in there skew heavier centric.
Right.
And so we kind of splintered off, I guess is kind of a way to put it.
We'd always end up gaming in different areas in the same house anyway.
Yeah, right. But it helps also that I have a wonderful wife that digs heavy games, so I have a built-in partner for those. And, we live less than 10 minutes away from each other, so we always have access to basically a 3-player game almost all the time. But to be honest with you, we're just really lucky in that respect, I guess. Although there are some game groups out there that, there's the First Minnesota up, in Minnesota, there's the Dallas Gamers Group.
Where they are?
To where there are a bunch of like-minded folks. We have a core of about 5 or 6 people, maybe 7, depending on the time of year when Sweater Mike's in town.
Right.
But yeah, we're just lucky, I guess. So yay on us.
Right on.
So
thanks for the questions, guys.
Yeah, that was fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and we answered them well, I guess. I hope.
All right, before we get out of here, let's remind everybody about the contest.
Yeah, so real simple. You need to email us, contest@heavycardboard.com. Answer 2 questions. 1, how'd you hear about the show? And 2nd, what are you most looking forward to playing in 2015? Doesn't have to be a 2015 release. Could be just new to you.
Sure.
You do those 2 things, we'll randomly pull out a name. Do a random generator or whatever, and next episode we'll announce the winner.
Get a brand new copy of Shipyard, courtesy of Game Surplus and Heavy Cardboard. Speaking of Game Surplus, just one more time, visit those guys, www.gamesurplus.com. Great people, great games, great prices. Tell them Heavy Cardboard sent you.
And just shout out to Amos and Velma. Thanks for being partners. We're happy with it. They're happy with it. Everyone drives home in a Cadillac.
Tell folks how to contact us.
Sure. Twitter, we are really active on there, at Heavy Cardboard. Facebook, Heavy Cardboard. Email, heavycardboard@gmail.com. That'll be changing, but not yet. And last but not least, the website, heavycardboard.com. Go there to check out for the YouTube channel once we get that hammered out in the next couple days. And other than that, take a moment and rate, and if you would, review us on iTunes.
Please.
We definitely appreciate it. And other than that, I guess we'll catch you guys in a couple weeks, maybe with maybe Puerto Rico, I'm thinking. What do you think?
Potentially so.
Yeah.
My daughter's graduating college, and parents are coming in and everything, so my gaming time is going to be limited. So I need to cover a game that's going to have a lot of familiarity with me, and that sounds like it's an awesome title.
It's good to have those in our pocket.
It is.
I mean, we'll still play it a couple more times to get it fresh, but maybe not. We've played it a bunch, so.
Let us know what you guys think of the additional video format, and I had a really good time, man.
Yeah, man. Enjoyed it. We'll catch you guys in a couple weeks. Later.